you take a newborn baby, someone who hasn't even taken their first breath yet, and test the blood in their umbilical cord, you probably expect to find a blank slate.
Right, you'd hope so.
Yeah, but according to the Environmental Working Group, you'll actually find around 280 industrial compounds in there. And a really startling amount of that chemical burden traces back to, well, the one thing we all trust implicitly, which is our tap water.
It really shatters the whole illusion we have about purity, doesn't it? I mean, we turn on the faucet, we fill the glass, and we just assume we're getting pure hydration.
Exactly.
But the chemical reality is that nobody alive today, nobody's avoided exposure to this massive, highly reactive soup of ubiquitous chemicals.
Which is the core mission for our deep dive today. I've been digging through this huge mountain of fascinating and honestly pretty alarming research from Dr. William Davis, Dr. Eric Berg, and the team at Nature Fresh Health Products.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there.
There really is. We're uncovering what's actually lurking in your daily water. So hidden industrial runoff and intentional additives like chlorine and fluoride.
But we aren't just going to sit here and list off terrifying chemicals for you. We need to explore the underlying mechanisms. Like, how do these compounds secretly hijack your body's essential minerals?
Right.
And, what does that biological theft actually do to your systemic health?
And we're also exploring the surprising science-backed ways you can protect your teeth and your overall health. Because, and here's where it gets really interesting, the very chemicals added to our water to theoretically protect us might be creating a chain reaction of hidden health issues.
Yeah, to really understand this paradox of modern public health, we have to grasp the sheer scale of the exposure first.
Set the scene for us.
Well, let's look at a study compiled in Dr. Davis's research focusing on perchlorates.
And perchlorates are...
They're a highly toxic residue left over from synthetic fertilizers. They frequently run off right into the groundwater. So researchers tested 2,800 people across all these various demographics just to see how widespread the contamination was.
Okay, knowing how these environmental studies usually go, I'd guess a massive chunk of the population, like 80, maybe 85% of them had it.
It was 100%.
Right, literally everyone?
Every single person out of the 2,800 tested had detectable levels of perchlorates in their bodies.
That is wild. It's like thinking you're cleaning your floors with a damp mop, but someone secretly swapped the bucket for a highly diluted industrial solvent.
That's a great way to put it.
Right. Day one, nothing looks different. But a decade later, the foundation of the house is dissolving, and you're just standing there wondering why your feet itch all the time. We are just completely immersed in this environment.
That analogy captures the bioaccumulation problem perfectly.
Yeah.
And I mean, that is just the accidental runoff. We really have to look at what municipalities intentionally add to the water supply after it's been processed.
Like chlorine.
Specifically chlorine, chloramine, and fluoride, yeah.
Well, let's give the municipalities some credit here, because I do understand why they do it. Chlorine is a highly effective antibacterial agent. They just want to ensure a city's population doesn't, contract cholera or typhoid from the tap.
Oh, absolutely. And they do that job incredibly well. But the mechanism that makes chlorine lethal to waterborne pathogens, well, it doesn't just politely switch off once it enters your body.
Oh, right, because of our gut microbiome.
Exactly. Your gut relies on this delicate, highly complex ecosystem of microscopic flora to digest food, synthesize neurotransmitters, and regulate your immune system.
So the water is attacking that.
Yeah. Consuming chlorinated water daily acts as this steady microdose of antibiotics.
Yeah.
It fundamentally alters the entire composition of your bowel flora over time.
I've also read that a lot of cities have actually switched from standard chlorine to chloramine. Why make the change if they both act like antibiotics in the gut anyway?
Well, chloramine is much more stable. Historically, if you wanted to remove chlorine from your drinking water, you could simply fill a pitcher, leave it on the counter overnight, or boil it, and the chlorine would just off gas right into the air.
Oh, I remember people doing that for fish tanks.
Yes.
Yeah.
But municipalities realized this meant the chlorine was dissipating before it reached the far ends of long pipe systems. So chloramine was engineered specifically to resist off-gassing.
Which means it stays in the water longer.
It persists in the pipes, yes, but that also means it persists right there in your glass.
Man, we are essentially treating our internal biology the same way we treat a municipal swimming pool.
We really are.
When I was looking at the chemical breakdown of why these specific additives cause so much chaos inside us, it pointed to this massive turf war over something called halogens.
Right. This is where basic chemistry dictates our biology. If you look at a standard periodic table, there's a specific column of elements known as the halogens.
Which ones are those?
This family includes fluorine, which gives us fluoride, along with chlorine, bromine, and iodine.
Iodine being the absolute hero of the story here, right? Like, our bodies desperately need it to survive.
It is an absolutely essential trace mineral. But the architecture of these elements creates a massive problem. Chlorine, fluoride, and bromine all have lower atomic numbers and lower atomic weights than iodine.
Okay, so they're lighter. What does that mean in the body?
In cellular chemistry, lighter halogens are highly reactive. They basically act like biological bullies. They aggressively compete for and displace iodine on your cellular receptors.
So let me get this straight. Even if I have plenty of iodine floating around in my bloodstream, the fluoride from my tap water just rushes in and steals the parking spot on the cell.
Exactly. They physically occupy the receptor site. So the heavier iodine molecule arrives, finds the site already blocked, and is eventually just excreted by the body because it can't be utilized.
Okay, wait a minute. I really need to challenge this. Because salt has been a cornerstone of the human diet for millennia, right? And we've been told for decades that our iodine needs are totally covered because we eat iodized salt. Are you telling me that basic natural salt is fundamentally flawed at delivering iodine? Like, how did our ancestors survive if salt just blocks it?
The difference lies in ancestral salt versus modern industrialized salt. Historical sea salt contained this complex, balanced matrix of trace minerals.
Okay.
But the refined table salt sitting in grocery stores today, it is completely stripped of everything except sodium chloride.
Oh, wow. Chloride, so chlorine.
Yes, it's heavily concentrated chlorine.
Mm-hmm.
And the research from Nature Fresh Health Products highlights this brutal irony. They fortify this modern salt with iodine, sure, but when you consume it, the chlorine present in the salt itself is so unnaturally abundant and reactive.
Let me guess, it steals the parking spots.
It occupies about 90% of your iodine receptors.
That is a massive blind spot. I mean, I'm salting my food, assuming my nutritional bases are totally covered, and the chemical makeup of the carrier itself is actively blocking the payload.
Yeah, you might only actually absorb about 10% of the iodine provided in that salt. And add to this the fact that back in the 1980s, the commercial baking industry stopped using iodine as a dough conditioner and replaced it with bromine.
Oh, another halogen bully.
Precisely.
Huh.
So the bread we eat actively introduces bromine. Our water introduces chlorine and fluoride. And the modern salt we rely on just overwhelms us with chloride.
Wow.
We are systematically starving our cellular receptors of iodine.
So what actually happens to the human body when it is systematically starved of iodine on that kind of scale?
Well, the most immediate, profound impact hits your thyroid gland. The thyroid is basically the master control switch for your entire metabolism, and its hormone production is entirely dependent on iodine.
It pulls it from the blood, right?
Exactly. The gland extracts iodine from your blood and uses it to synthesize hormones.
I've heard people talk about T3 and T4 when they mention thyroid issues, but what do those numbers actually mean?
It's surprisingly simple. The 3 and the 4 literally indicate the number of iodine atoms attached to the hormone molecule.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah, thyroxine is T4, meaning it contains 4 iodine atoms. Tridothyronine is T3, containing 3. These hormones travel deep into your cells, they penetrate the mitochondria, and they instruct your body to release energy, burn fat, and maintain your core body temperature.
So if you don't have enough iodine, the factory basically shuts down.
Completely. Your metabolism slows to a crawl. You start experiencing chronic fatigue, unexplained weight gain, low body temperature, and brain fog.
That sounds awful.
It is. But the body's evolutionary survival mechanisms kick in here, and they actually end up compounding the problem.
Wait, how does the survival mechanism make things worse?
From an evolutionary standpoint, a massive drop in metabolic energy signals to your body that you're starving or facing some severe famine.
Okay.
So under this perceived stress, the liver intercepts that T4 hormone. Instead of converting it into the active T3 you need for energy, it converts it into a structural mirror image called reverse T3, or RT3.
Reverse T3, what does that do?
It's an emergency brake. Reverse T3 rushes to your cells and locks onto these specific sites called beta-adrenergic receptors.
Okay, let's break that down for everyone. Think of those beta-adrenergic receptors as the ignition switches for your fat-burning engine. Normal T3 puts the key in and starts the car. What does reverse T3 do?
Reverse T3 jams a dummy key into the ignition and breaks it off.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it perfectly fits the lock, but it cannot turn the engine over. And because the dummy key is stuck right there in the receptor, your normal active T3 cannot get in. Your body just completely shuts down fat burning to hoard energy for this supposed famine.
So you could be trying to lose weight, eating a perfectly clean diet, hitting the gym every day, but because your water and your bread have depleted your iodine, your liver is literally locking the doors to your fat cells.
That is the frustrating biological reality for millions of people. And unfortunately, the systemic fallout extends way beyond the thyroid. We really must look at the brain too, particularly developing brains.
Yeah, when I was digging through Dr. Berg's notes on this, the sheer volume of data just blew my mind. There's something like 180 studies published just since 2006 pointing to neurotoxicity from fluoride.
Fluoride is incredibly disruptive. In developing infants and young children, fluoride has actually been shown to physically interfere with the development of neurons.
Really? Like structurally?
Yes. And the formation of synapses, which are the vital connections between brain cells. It even alters the production of essential neurotransmitters.
So what does that physical disruption look like in terms of real-world outcomes?
Well, a systematic review and meta-analysis of over 70 studies revealed a very clear, significant inverse association between fluoride exposure and children's IQ scores.
An inverse association, so meaning
As fluoride exposure in a community's water supply increases, the measurable IQ scores of the children in that community objectively decrease.
that is incredibly sobering to think about. But I have to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Sarah, go ahead.
If fluoride is causing this much systemic damage, if it's hijacking our thyroids and blunting brain development, it must at least be an absolute miracle worker for our teeth, right? I mean, that is the entire justification for pumping it into the municipal water supply in the first place.
Well, the supposed dental benefit of fluoride is a really complex paradox.
Yeah.
Chemically, yes, fluoride does integrate into tooth enamel to form a compound called fluorapatite. It objectively hardens the outer surface of the tooth.
Okay, so it does work.
Temporarily. However, chronic long-term exposure leads to a condition called dental fluorosis.
What does fluorosis do to the teeth?
It alters the deeper structural composition of the enamel. It causes severe pitting, white or brown discoloration, and ultimately makes the tooth incredibly brittle and prone to fracturing.
Yikes.
But the most alarming danger, which is outlined in that Nature Fresh research, isn't actually what happens to the hard enamel. It's what happens to the soft periodontal tissue.
You mean the gums?
Exactly. Fluoride destroys collagen. And collagen is the primary structural protein that makes up your living gum tissue. It's the foundation that holds your teeth firmly anchored right there to your jawbone.
Okay, so using fluoride is like building a house with super hard bricks, but you're using a corrosive acid for the mortar. The bricks might look totally fine on the outside, but the whole wall is inevitably going to collapse from the foundation.
That is exactly what happens. The fluoride weakens the collagen matrix, which causes the gum line to pull away and recede.
And that exposes the root.
Yes, it exposes the sensitive, highly porous root of the tooth, which, by the way, does not have that hard enamel coating. So tooth decay occurring below the gum line has actually now become the leading cause of tooth loss.
Because the foundation just gave way.
Precisely. And when those deep gum pockets become weak and infected, they breed highly aggressive bacteria. This is where a localized dental issue escalates into a massive systemic health crisis.
They get into the body.
Right. The bacteria don't stay confined to your mouth. They enter your bloodstream through the compromised bleeding gums.
And travel straight to the cardiovascular system, I'm guessing?
Unfortunately, yes. Studies consistently show that individuals with advanced periodontal disease have double the risk of heart disease. The oral bacteria cause microscopic blood clots and trigger massive systemic inflammation in the arteries.
Okay, let's step back for a second because this is a massive mountain of information for you to process. We are immersed in an invisible chemical soup. Our iodine is constantly being hijacked by aggressive halogens. Our thyroids are slamming on the metabolic brakes, and the chemicals supposedly protecting our teeth are actually dissolving our gums.
It sounds bleak when you put it all together like that.
It really does. If I'm listening to this, I am definitely side-eyeing my glass of tap water right now. So how do we actually take control of this without feeling completely overwhelmed?
The most empowering realization you can have is that while you cannot control the macro environment, You can't personally go fix the municipal water supply. You have absolute authority over your microenvironment.
Your house,
Your
basically.
kitchen, your bathroom, your daily habits, yes.
Let's talk actionable solutions then. Step one has to be aggressively filtering the water we drink and cook with, right?
Filtration is non-negotiable at this point. However, a standard charcoal pitcher sitting in your fridge, that won't remove halogens like fluoride or chloramine.
So what do we need instead?
You need a reverse osmosis system, commonly called RO, or a highly specialized bone char carbon filter, something like a Berkey system.
There is a significant caveat with reverse osmosis, though, that I noticed in the sources. RO systems waste a staggering amount of water.
The ratio is pretty harsh, yes. It takes approximately 4 gallons of wastewater, just flushed right down the drain, to produce 1 single gallon of clean RO filtered water. That is a real environmental footprint that consumers must factor into their decision.
And there is a biological catch, too, isn't there? When you use intense filtration to strip out all the industrial toxins, you're also stripping out all the beneficial, naturally occurring minerals.
That's the trade-off.
Mm-hmm.
RO water is essentially dead water. If you exclusively drink pure RO water, its lack of osmotic balance can actually leach vital minerals right out of your own body.
Oh, wow.
So if you filter your water this heavily, you absolutely must actively remineralize it. You need to add trace minerals like magnesium back in, and crucially, you need to address the iodine deficiency we discussed earlier.
The research specifically highlighted Lugol's iodine for that.
Yeah, Lugol solution is a classic, highly effective formulation. It contains both elemental iodine and potassium iodide.
How much are we talking?
The clinical research suggests targeting about 12.5 milligrams a day to effectively overcome that halogen displacement and really saturate the thyroid and other tissues. But a crucial disclaimer here.
Always check with a doctor.
Exactly. Anyone looking to initiate a high-dose iodine protocol should consult with a healthcare provider, as your thyroid may experience an adjustment period.
Okay, so we fix the water, we remineralize. But we still need to rethink oral hygiene. If commercial mouthwash and fluoride paste are basically chemical warfare on our gums, how do we shift to nurturing a healthy oral microbiome? The sources provided some incredible natural alternatives.
The paradigm shift here is moving away from trying to completely sterilize the mouth, which is basically impossible, and instead redesigning the environment so harmful, bacteria just cannot thrive.
Let's look at xylitol. I only know it as a natural sweetener found in sugar-free gum, but how does it act as a dental protectant?
Well, the bacteria responsible for cavities, particularly one called Streptococcus mutans, they absolutely thrive on sugar.
Right.
When they consume sugar, they excrete acid, and that acid is what dissolves your tooth enamel. Streptococcus mutans eagerly consume xylitol, mistaking it for real sugar, but they cannot metabolize it.
Oh, so it's a trap.
It provides zero energy. The bacteria essentially gorge themselves on it and then literally starve to death.
We just starved the bad guys. I love that.
Yeah.
But what about physically cleaning the teeth? I saw a note in the Nature Fresh research about chewing sunflower seeds that sounded bizarre to me at first.
It does sound unconventional, I know, but the deep mechanism there is brilliant. Sunflower seeds are incredibly dense in vitamin E. Yes, the seeds act as a physical, mechanical abrasive to gently polish the teeth while you chew.
But there's a chemical reaction, too.
Exactly. The real magic happens chemically.
How does the vitamin E physically stop plaque from forming?
Plaque is formed by bacteria clinging to a protein film on your teeth called the pellicle. As you chew the seeds, they release raw vitamin E oil. The specific lipid profile of vitamin E actually alters the lipid layer of your tooth surface.
Making it slippery.
It makes it incredibly slick, physically preventing the bacterial biofilm from adhering to it. It basically chemically waterproofs your teeth against plaque.
That is a brilliant snack swap. What about mouthwash, though? Most commercial brands are just like neon-colored alcohol that burns your tissue and dries out your mouth completely.
And drying out that mucosal tissue actually encourages worse bacterial overgrowth later. A highly effective natural alternative is just targeted hydrogen peroxide.
Like the brown bottle from the pharmacy.
Yes, mixing 1 tablespoon of standard 3% hydrogen peroxide with 4 tablespoons of water creates a really potent antibacterial rinse. You just swish for 30 seconds and spit. It destroys harmful anaerobic bacteria and then breaks down harmlessly into just water and oxygen.
That's so simple. Finally, the sources suggest treating the mouth exactly like the gut by using oral probiotics.
Because the mouth is its own diverse microbiome. If you want to permanently prevent cavity-causing bacteria from colonizing, you just introduce beneficial strains to outcompete them.
How do you take those?
Oral probiotics are often taken as lozenges right before bed. They help establish a robust microbial balance. When the beneficial bacteria occupy all the available real estate, the pathogens simply have nowhere to multiply.
To summarize this wild journey for you, we started by looking at a simple glass of tap water and realized it's actually an invisible chemical soup, loaded with industrial runoff and intentional additives.
We covered a lot of ground today.
We really did. We explored how halogens fight this biological turf war inside us, displacing the iodine our bodies desperately need and practically rendering modern table salt completely useless as an iodine source.
And we tracked the systemic fallout of that, how our thyroids hit the emergency brakes with reverse T3, basically shutting down fat burning, and how fluoride's neurotoxicity threatens cognitive development.
Plus, we completely unpacked the dental paradox, discovering that the fluoride meant to harden our enamel might actually be dissolving the collagen foundation of our gums.
But I hope the takeaway here isn't fear, it's empowerment. By taking control of our microenvironment, using smart filtration, actively remineralizing our bodies, and pivoting to a microbiome-friendly oral care routine with xylitol, vitamin E, and probiotics, we can actually protect our biological ecosystems.
You really do hold the power to dictate what crosses the threshold of your own home and your own body. It fundamentally changes how you look at the mundane routines of your day.
Absolutely.
But before we wrap up this deep dive, there is one last puzzle piece hidden in the sources, and it's something I want you to mull over on your own. It perfectly highlights the tightrope of modern health we're walking.
Like a pretty profound connection between historical medical treatments and our modern chemical depletion.
Yeah. The sources point out that healthy, robust iodine levels actively help the human body excrete heavy metals, specifically highly toxic metals like mercury. Now, consider that millions of adults today have old dental amalgam fillings packed with mercury just sitting in their mouths.
Fillings which, unfortunately, slowly off-gas and leach into the bloodstream over decades.
So, here is the provocative thought to ponder. Could it be that the very fillings used by modern dentistry to treat our past cavities are slowly releasing neurotoxins into our bodies, right at the exact moment in history when our chemically depleted, halogen-bombarded, iodine-starved bodies are no longer biochemically equipped to flush those toxins out?
It's a disturbing thought.
Are the chemicals in our water preventing us from surviving the cures inside our own mouths? It is a fascinating, genuinely unsettling question about the interconnectedness of our environment. And it's definitely something to chew on the next time you visit the dentist or, the next time you turn on the faucet to fill up a glass of tap water.